side with that Mammoth Swine. Going to be able to threaten that Guard Chomp and that Staraptor and pretty much just have a pretty even matchup both ways. Of course, that Heat Rotom very popular right now since Fire typing is such a great type in this metagame to be able to hit the Steel types such as Mawile, which you can see on Justin's side does have it. And right now we're about to get underway. Hydreigon and Garchomp out for Justin, and Staraptor and Rotom. Of course, Staraptor very well known to be Choice Scarf, and Heat Rotom, of course, not very effective against either of them. Garchomp going to be able to wall both of Heat Rotom's same type attack boosted attacks, as well as Hydreigon. However, that Will-O-Wisp from Rotom going to be able to do a good amount to kind of hinder the ability of Garchomp to do damage. And of course, that Staraptor already coming off fire, going to have that Intimidate onto that Garchomp. Going to be pretty good right there. And as I said earlier, Staraptor is pretty well known to be carrying Choice Scarf. Very threatening from close combat, Brave Bird, with very good types. And of course, Final Gambit's the scariest thing that could possibly come out of it as the close combat comes down onto Hydreigon. And Hydreigon hangs on in the yellow, about 25%, 30% remaining, as the defense drops from Staraptor go on. And Hydreigon going to go for the Draco Meteor. Powerful Draco Meteor going to hit that Heat Rotom and do a massive amount of damage. Might even pick up the knockout depending on what item it's carrying. A critical hit happens, and that actually does pick up the knockout. So huge knockout right now for Justin to take the early 4-3 lead. As Garchomp going to fire off a Rock Slide, going to be full power Rock Slide since Heat Rotom was knocked out earlier, and going to do a good amount of damage, bring it all the way down to the yellow, even after that Intimidate. Of course, that Intimidate pretty much saving that Staraptor. Kimo right now needs to figure out a way to try to pick up his momentum again, as he decided to send out Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan, of course, one of the most popular Mega Evolution Pokemon, so powerful with that new Parental Bond ability once it Mega Evolves. Garchomp right now going to be able to do a good amount of damage, but Hydreigon's going to be threatened by that Staraptor, as Kangaskhan with that Fake Out support going to be able to put a little bit of pressure as to where it's going to land, and that Staraptor might be able to get a free knockout right now onto that Hydreigon. Of course, since it's been weakened, it's not going to be able to do too much with that Final Gambit that it has in the back, most likely, as Staraptor does decide to switch out. Going to save that Intimidate for later. Good move. I don't mind that move by Kimo. As Garchomp comes in, that's a risky move. Going to be able to take the Rock Slide from Garchomp if Garchomp does decide to fire off a Rock Slide. But of course, right now, could easily fire off Dragon Claw as well. Kangaskhan going to Mega Evolve, going to get that Parental Bond ability. And going to go straight for the Power Punch. Going to hit that Hydreigon. And interesting thing to note right now is that Kangaskhan is actually going to outspeed the opposing Garchomp. Only going to get one attack boost, so at +1 right now. Going to still be able to do a very good amount of damage. As Garchomp going to fire off a Rock Slide. And good read right there by Kimo to try to pick it up again. Right now it is going to be even 3-3. Of course, Kimo having a heavily damaged Staraptor in the back. Going to be kind of dead weight, as Mammoth Swine's going to come in. Easily going to be able to threaten that Garchomp. Mammoth Swine, of course, with that Priority Ice Shard with the Life Orb, could possibly even pick up the knockout instantly on that Garchomp, who's 4 times weak to that Ice-type attack. And going to have to see what Kimo decides to do, as Garchomp going to protect himself. Doesn't want to risk losing Garchomp so early in this matchup right now. And Mammoth Swine going to go for the Protect as well, kind of trying to see what Kimo's going to do with that Kangaskhan, as Kangaskhan is going to fire off the return, going to hit that Garchomp. Big move right there by Kimo, and going to be able to do a massive amount of damage, but of course that Rock Skin going to hurt it back. And the return does pick up the knockout, but Ruskin does a good amount of damage back to that Kangaskhan, so kind of a bad play right there, kind of bad position for Justin as he goes down 2-3. Would have liked to see that Mammoth Swine try to fire off an attack instead of Protect, as TFC really getting that good read. Mawile going to come out and going to Intimidate, going to bring Garchomp down to -1, and Kangaskhan going to go back to neutral. And right now, Justin does have the pieces to try to pick up this victory. Mammoth Swine's going to be pretty big to help knock out that Staraptor out in the back, and at the same time, of course, going to be able to do a good amount of damage to this Garchomp right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see if TFC decided to switch, and he does decide to switch. Going to go straight into that Staraptor, might be sacrificing the Staraptor just to fire off his Intimidate and be able to survive Ice Shard's next turn. Mawile and Mammoth Swine not enjoying that Intimidate at all, as now they're going to be at -1 attack each. As Mawile might as well fire off that Mega Evolution, because, you know, there's no point in him trying to switch and pick up any more Intimidates since he cannot switch, as these are his last 2 Pokemon. Mawile going to go for the Sucker Punch, going to hit that Kangaskhan, going to do a good amount of damage despite that Intimidate, as Kangaskhan going to fire off the return, going to hit that Mammoth Swine. That might not be enough, and Mammoth Swine does hang on, as it does decide to use Icicle Crash. Going to be able to hit that Staraptor and knock it out, so Staraptor getting knocked out. Of course, it did its job. It came in, fired off that Intimidate onto Mawile and the Mammoth Swine. So right now, 2-on-2, Garchomp and Kangaskhan, two of the most popular Pokemon versus Mamoswine and Mawile. Two of the more underrated Pokemon in my opinion. Of course, Mawile is still very popular. Right now, that Garchomp is going to be threatened by that Mamoswine. Of course, that Mawile is also going to be able to threaten that Garchomp as well. But at the same time, right now, this Garchomp is at full power. It has not been intimidated. But it all depends on what Justin decides to do. Both players right now really close. Both players have the pieces to seal the deal, and it just depends on if they can predict each other to play to their best ability and try to see what the other player is going to do. Tough time deciding right now, although this was a pretty quick match. 2-2, Justin with Mamoswine and Mawile left, and Garchomp and Kangaskhan down on Kimo's side. Going to be close, going to be tight. Garchomp has not been intimidated. Mamoswine and Mawile have been intimidated, so that Ice Shard, if Mamoswine does decide to fire off an Ice Shard, it will not be able to pick up the knockout. Mawile, of course, going to have to take an Earthquake if it does want to be able to do any damage. And if Mawile might be able to fire off a Sucker Punch and knock out that Kangaskhan with that Intimidate as well. But at the same time, that Garchomp's going to be able to threaten both Mamoswine and Mawile. Going to be able to do a good amount of damage. And next turn, Sucker Punch wouldn't be in range to knock out that Garchomp at all. So Mamoswine going to have to try to pick up some damage onto that Garchomp to get it kind of in range for next turn if Justin wants to try to pick up the victory. Right now, tough decision for Kimo. Still trying to decide what to do. I mean, most likely going to lose to Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan, not very well known to carry Protect, although some variants do carry Protect. Trying to decide what he should do with that Garchomp. I mean, should he protect it this turn or fire off that Earthquake? So really tough decision, really tight game right now. And I'm sure it's the same for Justin. I mean, Justin has a lot of things to do. As timer actually goes down, and Kangaskhan going to use Fake Out and fail. Timer ran out on him, but the Sucker Punch does fail on the Kangaskhan, so that was interesting move as the Earthquake fires off and knocks out the Kangaskhan and knocks out the Mamoswine. But interesting decision to use Fake Out. Might have been timer there or some crazy strategy that Kimo came up with. But right now, that Garchomp going to be able to pick up that knockout with an Earthquake. So congrats to Kimo picking up the victory in a very tight situation. And that is it. Kimo's going to advance to 3-1. Justin going to drop to 2-2. Very close battle between the two.